Deep in the Kutch district of India, two stone tombs sit side by side. To the naked eye, they are stationary, but local lore suggests that every year, the gap between them narrows by the width of a single grain of rice. There is a terrifying countdown attached to this movement. The legend claims when these two stones finally touch, the world will be destroyed. These are the samadhis of Jaisal and Toral. Yet, despite the apocalyptic prophecy, this site is a center of peaceful, multi-faith worship, where both Hindus and Muslims come to pay their respects at this ornate pavilion. We are left to wonder why a place dedicated to universal harmony and spiritual pilgrimage is anchored by a warning about the violent end of our existence. To find the answer, we must look back at the man who occupied the first tomb. Long before he was revered as a saint, Jaisal Jadeja was a figure of pure terror, the Black Cobra of Kutch. He was a dacoit who operated without a shred of fear or a pulse of empathy. He moved through the entire region as an unstoppable force of nature, striking down anyone who crossed his path. His crimes were specifically designed to shatter social and moral order. He slaughtered sacred cows, robbed the vulnerable, and murdered his own sister and nephew in cold blood. It defies the standard logic of history that a man of such unrepentant cruelty could ever be elevated to the status of a godlike figure with a sacred resting place. Jaisal's life was built on a toxic definition of manhood. He believed a real man proved his strength by forcibly taking 3 specific prizes: a legendary horse, a master-crafted sword, and another man's wife. To claim that final prize, he traveled to Kathiawad under the cover of night, intending to kidnap a woman named Sati from her home. When he confronted Toral's husband, the response was baffling. Instead of drawing a sword to defend his honor, the husband laughed and willingly handed his wife over to the robber. Jaisal rode away believing he had secured his final trophy. He had actually invited a spiritual master into his life, someone who viewed the human body as mere flesh and bones, and who was already planning his total psychological deconstruction. As they attempted to cross the river, the two presented a sharp contrast. Jaisal was a knot of physical tension and arrogance. Toral sat in the boat with a stillness that seemed to ignore the world around her. Without warning, the river turned. A sudden, apocalyptic storm surged, and dark waves violently tore into the hull of their small wooden boat. For the first time in his blood-soaked life, the Black Cobra was paralyzed. The man who had never feared death found himself shivering at the prospect of his own mortality. Toral remained unmoved by the chaos. She sat in the center of the storm, watching Jaisal's bravado dissolve into pure, unadulterated terror. She gave him an ultimatum. She would ensure the boat survived, but only if Jaisal verbally confessed every sin he had ever committed to the rising water. Jaisal collapsed. He wept as he admitted that the number of his crimes exceeded the hairs on his own head, finally acknowledging the weight of the lives he had taken. The moment his ego shattered and he truly repented, the storm didn't just fade, it vanished instantly, leaving the water as still as glass. Jaisal settled in the town of Anjar as Toral's humble disciple. The man the entire region once feared could now be found by a pond, quietly washing clothes and performing menial labor. The local villagers mocked him for his transformation, but he never retaliated. He met their insults with a silence that suggested the violent man he once was had been completely extinguished. After years of devotion, they chose to undergo samadhi, a final spiritual act where they were buried alive together, transitioning out of their physical bodies in a state of meditation. Their legacy was put to a literal physical test in 2001, when the devastating Gujarat earthquake leveled the surrounding region, turning entire villages into fields of rubble. Amidst the total destruction of the town, one structure remained perfectly intact. While the walls surrounding the site had been obliterated, the tombs of Jaisal and Toral were not damaged in the slightest. To the people of Anjar, the survival of the tomb suggests that the spiritual change Jaisal achieved was more resilient than the stone and mortar of the world around him. This brings us back to the mystery of the creeping tombs and the label on this timeline, the end of the Kali Yuga. Within this spiritual context, The end of the world isn't an event of fire and brimstone. It represents the destruction of the Kali Yuga, the era of illusion and ego that Jaisal spent his early life embodying. The legend of Jaisal and Toral suggests that when those two tombs finally meet, it won't be the end of existence, but the final collapse of the violence and selfishness that defines our current age. It is a story that posits that the only victory worth winning is the one you achieve.